Hi, guys. Welcome to the Parenting Collective. Uh, and ouch. Welcome. I kind of squeezed. Anyway, welcome to our webinar today, which is called Parenting the Parent. So, a couple of things. So, Parenting Collective is a group of friends that like to talk a lot about our kids. And so we came together and said, you know what? Since we talk a lot about our kids and we talk about what we think um, was appropriate for them, was good for them, and what we thought we knew about our kids. So we decided to put together a group called the Parenting Collective to talk about it with you. And so we are composed of a psychologist who's my husband, Rafi in Essentia. We have a sleep and positive parenting expert, Ria Campos Lopez. We have a pediatrician, Dr. Andrea Carag, and I'm the teacher, Nicole Concepcion, and I'm part of the Discovery Academy of Innovation. So for today, right, like I said earlier, we have a webinar called Parenting Your Parents, and this is where you can ask us all those questions about dealing with your parents and your in-laws, how your relationship works with them, how the relationship of your parents and your kids work, and how you should get involved. So to be part of our webinar, we have two psychologists from Better Step Psychology. First is Kay Bunagan. So Kay will join us. Hi Kay.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, good.
Yeah.
Excited about the topic this afternoon.
I'm sure. And the other one is my husband, Rafi and Essentia. So Rafi there.
Hello.
Hi Rafi. How's the other room?
Hi. Hello, hello. The other room, it's quiet here.
So, can you guys tell us a little bit more about Better Step Psychology before we start and kind of, a little bit more about Better Step Psychology before we start?
Yeah. So, Better Step Psychology is a mental health clinic. So, we have on staff, we started with 6 psychologists. We are all friends in grad school. That's my version of Parenting Collective. We were all friends in grad school. And then we just decided to pull together and combine our resources and open a clinic. So now, from the initial 6 uh, friends from grad school, we're now a community of more than 10 mental health professionals. We have psychologists and psychiatrists on staff. We're usually based in Pasig, except now we are offering all our services online. So if you want to learn more, you can look us up on at www.bettersteps.org. So at Better Steps, I take care of children, adolescents, and their parents. And then Kay here will introduce herself also in her practice.
Yes.
Okay, so on the other hand, I handle couples and families. So I like to do relationship and family therapy, as well as some individuals. A lot of them like going through transitions. A lot of people approaching midlife, maybe, and single women who have a lot of issues. So we laugh about how certain clients seem to gravitate towards us. And lately, I've been seeing more bipolar clients with bipolar disorder, as well as anxiety. I mean, everybody's going through a lot of
Yeah.
anxiety right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, that's right. Uh-oh.
Yeah. Do you get to see a lot of them even on online or at this point
Yes, a
in
lot
time? Yeah.
of, well, at this time, my practice seems to be like actual clients and lots of friends who are going through some difficulties
Yeah.
during this period. So we've noticed
Mhm.
how a lot of people who are usually strong and know what to do are suddenly at a loss, or at least experiencing days where they're suddenly more anxious than usual, unable to function as well as they used to. So they get some booster shots from friends like us. I'm sure
Ah.
Rafi, you have friends like those as
Yeah.
well who come to you. So this
Yes.
pandemic has been difficult on all of us. Diba?
Yeah, no, it definitely
Yes.
has been
Uh,
difficult. And I think a lot of, especially if you live at home with your parents or you are constantly communicating with them, it becomes a little bit more close quarters, difficult to deal with them, right?
So there's a less avoidance
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
possible because especially in our country,
mhm.
there are a lot of multi-generational households
Yes.
and very close knit. So there are those issues with those who live with their parents and those who are constantly in touch with their parents. It's just a lot of people in our
Yeah.
culture.
Yes. And
Mhm.
I guess the
Yeah.
first question really would be, are our parents really different from us, right? Are there significant generational differences between how we see things and how we do things versus them?
Definitely, there are differences. Of course, there's similarities because we're all Filipinos, no? And there's a lot of cultural similarities. We grew up with them. But the world that we were born in is different from the world they were born in. And the world we were growing up in is different from the world they were growing up in. So, those, for example, like many of them grew up, were born around the time of World War II, maybe a little bit later. So a lot of different circumstances around that time. Technology was different also at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So these differences in terms of how we see the world can also be seen. So for example, right now the young adults are either millennials or Gen X. No, young to middle adults, and these are the ones who are sort of parenting the parents. So there are differences
Mhm.
between millennials and Gen X, but also between Gen X and baby boomers, as well as
Mm-hmm.
millennials and baby boomers. So, um, for example, in terms of technology, the millennials were very young when they first like the world they know is a world with computers. No, they grew up having all of these things in the household, whereas
Mm-hmm.
for Gen Xers, for example, these were things at first that were available out there in school, maybe less accessible. But for baby boomers, especially, technology was different. So, for example, um, I remember before, not all households have phones, diba? And they had to sometimes, if especially if some people who live in the provinces, for example, they had to like go to call, how do you call that? Like a PLDT office or something, or
Yeah.
send telegrams, mga ganyan. So it was really
Telegram.
difficult in terms, diba?
Yeah.
Parang before when I was teaching college, sometimes it's hard to explain what telegrams are. Kasi I remember I remember like when you were talking about speech development and there was like a telegraphic speech, no, and they were
Ah,
like, okay,
yeah,
what does that mean, diba? So parang may stage doon na
yeah.
so you had to explain. So it was
Mhm.
a different world before, and parang it also has an impact in terms maybe of some brain development and how we have learned to let's say research, for example, in school before,
Mm-hmm.
like uh, to a certain extent Gen X, but more so for baby boomers. You had to go to the library and read there. Parang you couldn't even photocopy things because these are new technologies. But now for
Notecards.
the younger people, parang everything is easy. All
Yeah,
you do
yeah.
is like type into your phone what it is you need
Yeah.
to research on. No, so in terms of access to information, the older generation is parang still getting used to this barrage of information that they're getting online. And sometimes, and parang with my parents, sometimes
Mm.
that's part of what we need to talk about na, you just parang like these things that people send you, even if they're your friends, you have to be wary about clicking, di ba?
Yeah.
Because sometimes, yeah, the information you get, and
Yes.
parang the younger generations are more savvy, and so
Mhm.
we tend to be more wary about what we see online. No.
Mm.
Yeah. Uh, Rafi, anything you would like to add, or there's a
Parang
lot?
ano, I think Kay was able to say a lot, but basically, this has also parang all of this has implications on how we consume information now. Because we were, I guess we grew up in like our generation. It was easier for us to catch up into being more savvy with these things, and so it was easier for us to transition into consuming information and doing that. So I guess that's a very big difference that affects a lot of them. I think also, because of this um consumption of information kind of thing, in terms of like what we value, how we value things turn out to be different also.
Mhm.
um that's why I guess some of the friction would come from that also. So I don't know. It's about the consumption of the information, what we're used to. All of these things are different. But yun na nga, in terms of like Kay was saying a while ago, we're all Filipinos, so all have those social cultural values that may be similar, but it I guess it's how it's expressed that is different, and that's, I think, something very important for us to remember.
Add to that, I think
Actually, that's a
their
really good
generation.
point.
I sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry.
You
That
go ahead. Go ahead,
they've been
Kay.
through a
Yeah.
lot, their generation, and so parang not a lot of things face them, and so for some, like this pandemic is just another in a long string of like some difficulties in life, because
Yeah.
many of them they live through like maybe part of the aftermath from the world war, martial law, for example. They've been through that, and
Yeah.
all that came with, no, so many things, and they lived without, for example, TV was not such a big part of their lives. No, they spent a lot
Mm.
of times, a lot of days outdoors, diba? Parang unlike now, maybe that's also part of why they're having difficulty just staying at home. Maybe because for them, unlike tayo, parang part of our childhoods are really, when you had a free day, some days you just stayed at home and watched TV all day.
Mm-hmm.
But for them, that's not their thing.
Right.
No,
No, and that's definitely true. And I guess the question really, I wanted to ask in your what you've seen. Do you think that the values, because we did talk about context, right? The context is different from how you grew up. They're very different. We talked about that culturally we could be similar,
mm,
but everything now is much faster than it was. But in its essence, do you think the values of the older parents is different from our values now?
well, there might be some differences, and there might be there. I'm sure there are more similarities. One of the
Mhm.
difference might be how, like their generation really emphasized obedience so much,
Yeah.
and this was inculcated in us before. Like, parang even our parents, I'm sure, would say like, they would say, and even some of us would say, if we answered our parents the way kids answer now,
Mhm.
we'd
Yeah.
get a smacking or something. But now, we value how kids are able to express themselves, no, as long as
Mm-hmm.
they do it respectfully. There's more space for that.
Mm-hmm.
Before, obedience was really a big thing,
Mm-hmm.
so, and I think that's part of the dynamic now, because who's the parent and who's the child. So as parents, they were used to being just followed without much explanation, or pwedeng may explanation, but the explanation comes after you follow first, no, and
Yeah.
then you will talk about, why the rules are the way they are, no. So there's that dynamic na, and now sometimes you expect the same from them, no,
Yeah.
but since they're still the parent, that's such a big thing, partly because our culture, our society is very hierarchical, and so they should be higher on the hierarchy, and we have to make those kinds of adjustments. But then,
Just, yeah.
for many, uh, they've been able to transition into more adult-like, uh, more friend-like relationships with parents.
Mm.
No,
Okay.
and so this becomes, and as the parents grow older and kids grow older as well, there's that constant changing, maybe adjusting of the dynamic. So now part of the question is, how do we uh, somehow parent our parents without making them feel as though they're not, uh how would you say it, parang they don't
Hello.
have the
Yeah.
power anymore in the
Mm,
family, parang ganun na, parang
yeah,
tinaasan na natin sila sa
yeah,
hierarchy, because
right.
yun, parang that's part of respect, is an important part of our culture, I think, for both
Mm,
generations, except that the way we define respect might be a bit different from their definition of
mm,
respect.
right, right. I
Yeah.
think generationally also, the shift is because I parang link it back to the information consumption thing we're talking about, where right now there's so many places or ways to get information. You can also there's almost like a democratization of that process. Yung parang everyone can generate their own information and their own, so our generation is more used to like this free kind of exchange of ideas, whereas
That's true.
parang I guess parang the older generation, they were more used to like a one way kind of flow of information where it came from someplace. And so uh they kind of think that if it comes from someplace, it's been vetted, it's been checked, it's been verified. That's why the so it that's kind of an offshoot with the values thing that we were talking about, that Kay was talking about, where you know um follow first, ask questions later, because if you follow it, for them it's like it's coming from a place where we have your best interest at heart, and then we'll talk about it later. Whereas now, there is a valuing more of like of multiple sources of information, or like really trying to even out a lot of these things. So maybe that's also a difference that sort of highlights or exacerbates the challenge right now.
Hello.
Yeah, hello. Yes, we're here.
Yeah, and I think part of it is also that, like for example,
Yeah.
hello, Nicole.
Yes, yes.
Ah,
Hello. Yeah. Yeah.
parang, teka, I forgot what I was gonna say. Okay, go
It's
ahead.
okay.
Sige. I'll
It's
remember
okay.
it
No, and I,
eventually. Sorry.
no, and I guess you're no, you're right. Because really, a lot of it is we're still, our parents still see us as the kids, right? And they're the
Yes,
parents. That's
yes.
really
Mm,
where it stems from. And I like the point that you made, Kay, is as we get older, there is an adjustment and a change that we're trying to figure out. So you might become friends, you might be considered equal, but there is a point, I think, that you have to start parenting your parents, right?
mm,
So when they are, and it's, I think it's different for people. Like for me at home, I'm lucky I don't have to parent my parents yet.
Uh-uh.
I'm very lucky. But I see it with my grandparents, or I see it with some great grandparents where they are used to doing things a certain way, and so a lot of it is, it's like dealing with our 3-year-old, where we have to kind of play around her,
Spell it
cajole
out.
her, spell
Okay.
it out. We have to make sure that they understand very simply what it is, and then kind of not trick her, right, but help her make the logical leaps to do what we feel is the best
It's
choice.
best.
Yeah. And
uh,
so I guess the question is, with this pandemic, how has that kind of highlighted the relationship you have with your parents or your in-laws, right? Yeah.
Okay, so with
How
my
has
own
that happened?
parents,
Especially, yeah,
uh,
like this, has it made
well,
the adjustment period easier? Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
I don't live with my parents right now, but because of the pandemic, we were talking more, and
Yeah.
it's relative, because parang parang but more now would be like once or twice a week. Maybe that's more already for me. Um, uh, but I'm also lucky because I don't have to exactly parent them. But then,
Mhm.
parang I think this goes back to the goal of parenting, which is to prepare kids, for example, for the world, to live out there in the world. No, and uh, in a way, some of us who are, parang in some ways we know this world a bit more than our
Mhm.
parents in some ways, of course, and in other ways naman they know it more, 'di ba? And so that's why there's an exchange of information. So part of what happens is that we also share with them what we know that they need to know about what's going on out there. So for example, parang in a way the pandemic is maybe highlighting or adding on to our usual roles in the family. So for example, my brother is the one who's most interested in COVID, and so he follows everything. No, and parang when there are like, and he's a doctor also, so when there are facts that we need to vet and things like that, and he actually watches like those shows, the docu about COVID with his kids, ganyan, so that if there is information that we need to know about COVID, sometimes I would tell my parents, why don't you ask him about it? Kasi nga for them sometimes parang they like, especially my mom, she would watch these videos that make her more anxious, and she's anxious to begin with. No, so for a while, parang she was preparing not to, because she's been staying at home. Before the pandemic hit, we were already preparing her to go back to the clinic, like once or twice a week, ganyan, just to keep her busy. Because my sisters have taken over doing clinic. But then when the pandemic hit, that parang we had to put that on the back burner. And for a while, she's really anxious about it. And sometimes people would forward her videos that would make her more anxious. And not everything is COVID related. So sometimes, she would watch a video about, like, let's say, parang recently she sent me a video about like how cars can be broken into quite easily. And I'm
Yeah.
thankful, but I was telling her that why don't you not don't watch those videos anymore, because they're just making all of us more anxious, and none of us go out much anyway. No, we don't, unlike before where you would stay someplace for the entire day so you don't know what's going on with your car. But now often you go, even if you go to like if my brother goes to the clinic, he's there 1 hour, 2 hours, and then he leaves. No, he
Yeah.
goes back home. No, so yeah, and sometimes there's that, and parang she's receptive naman, although sometimes I can sense na there's a little bit of maybe how do you say it, parang may konting sama ng loob maybe, kasi nga you're, and that happens, 'di ba, whether
Yeah.
you're parent or child, when you have to tell each other about some of these reminders. No, um so part of it is us also uh being able to tell them some guidelines about the use of computers or cell phones, ganyan, how to consume
Yeah.
information, what information to just, don't mind those things, or don't even click. No, even if it's from your friend, if it looks like spam, ganyan,
Yeah.
because we don't know what people are up
Right.
to. So
Right.
those kinds of things. So parang part of it is us really being able to talk to them. And parang in my own family, I think my role, especially with my mom, since I'm the psychologist, I'm the one who listens to her.
Yeah.
No? So like
Yeah.
now, I don't talk to her often, but some of these calls would last like an hour or something, and parang me just listening to
Yeah.
her, and
Yeah.
really just talking, letting her talk things out, ganyan, giving her reminders. No, so I think the pandemic somehow highlights things that might be already there, adds a few things if some things need to, parang there are new needs that we have because it's a new world out there. No? So
Right.
it changes somewhat.
Yeah.
And for my dad naman, parang Papa would call me to tell me, for example, na, oh, you talk to your mom, ganyan. So parang taga-remind siya.
Yeah.
And parang somehow now, kasi nga, because they're from Davao, we have some political differences about political opinions. So we're able to like talk more, because before I would, get mad, And so now we're trying to be more adult
Mm-hmm.
about talking
Right.
about different
Right.
things, even if
Right.
we have differences in opinion. So part of it is
Mm-hmm.
reminding ourselves that they're still our parents, no,
Mm-hmm.
and in the same way that we feel bad sometimes if kids, like for example me, my nephews, diba, would talk to you, like would shout out to you, or yell something, no,
Yeah.
uh they have those feelings too, no, especially because they're our parents, and parang in the hierarchy they're really higher than
Yeah.
us supposedly,
Right.
no, so parang just to be mindful of that, no,
Yeah.
Mm.
especially now,
Yeah.
to be respectful
Yeah.
even if you're trying to be more open with each other.
And thank you. And that's really important to remember that we need to, still remember that they're our parents and that we should respect them.
Mm.
My question would be, that's good if you have a good relationship with your parent, right? But what if your relationship isn't very strong, and then they start doing uh, risk-taking behavior? So I hear a lot of people. I see it on Facebook, and I've seen people
Mm,
complain where, oh my gosh, my mom, I told her about COVID, or my dad, I told them about COVID, and labas ng labas pa rin, right?
mm,
And they're like, oh, it's just COVID. So when you tell them what it is, they're like, oh, it's just like the flu. There's nothing to worry about.
mm,
And so, how
mm.
would you suggest dealing with things like that?
Well, always come from start with being mindful of your goal for the conversation.
Hmm.
Because sometimes when we, just dive into it without preparing,
Yeah.
you get so emotional and then you don't get the goal for talking to them, for example.
Yeah.
'Di ba? Kasi galit ka na agad, ganyan. So you're not
Yeah.
able to continue the
Mm.
conversation. So when we need to talk to them about something like this, no, that might not be received well, it's important to remember what your goal is for that
Mhm.
conversation. So if the goal is for them to be open, no, so we have to also start by being open. No? And
Hmm.
funny enough, I read an article from, where was this? Hindi ko na maalala kung New York Times or Washington Post. And they got advice from a hostage negotiator on how to talk to family about potentially explosive topics. And it actually made sense what he said. So he said that, start with listening to
Mm.
the other person. No? Listening first. And then listen with empathy, listen to understand. No? Because and this is something I suppose that he got from working with hostage takers, that first and foremost what they needed was to be heard. No, and so it is sometimes with, kasi
Mm.
nga with family, sometimes it's a potentially explosive situation. So listen, no, so listen.
And I guess it's
So binasa ko, sabi ko, makes sense naman. Pero di ba of
so
all people to ask for
Yeah.
help.
advice from?
So is it one of those, listen to what's not being said? Yung parang
Maybe,
they're going out, but what they really want is attention,
Mhm. Mhm.
or
yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
find out what
Yeah.
the needs
Right.
are.
Right.
So when we
yeah.
listen to
Mhm.
understand, find out, parang try to identify what is the emotion, that they're trying to convey, and what is the need that underlies that emotion. So like for example, yun nga, attention. O kaya they want to talk to you more pala, 'di ba? Or any family member, maybe they're lonely, no?
Yeah.
So they need the company. So it doesn't have to be like something out there, but because nga maybe parang their kids have not been talking to them as much, ganyan, and parang lagi na lang silang pinapagalitan kasi nga sobrang gala,
Mm.
'di ba? And it goes
Mm.
both ways. So maybe
Mm.
we listen first, and
Mm-hmm.
what happens when we listen to other people, it makes them more open to listening to us also, no, kasi it's
Right.
hard, like even
Ah.
with kids, 'di ba, it's hard to get them to
Yeah.
listen to us if we don't listen to them
Mhm.
first.
Right.
Yeah. No, and
Yeah.
then that's
So
definitely true. Sorry, yes, Rafi.
kasi I was something clicked with me. Parang it actually came out in one of the one of the sessions I was having with one of the clients I had, um where it goes back to like, because like what Kay was saying, if it's something like that, usually when the parents are not being very, I guess, cooperative or helpful, to assuage your anxiety,
Mhm.
because we all have our anxieties over what's going on, and the possibility of this whole COVID thing. So we want, so parang the goal of everyone is to keep everyone safe. But basically, when these conversations come up, we always come into these conversations with our own agenda. And most of the
Mm.
time, because we want to keep them safe, our agenda is usually containment, to contain them, to manage them, to
Yeah.
manage their behavior. But then, as Kay was saying a while ago, it's good to come in from a point where you want to listen to understand. And I know that sometimes it might be hard because you have very opposite points of view with regards to the same situation. So I was telling actually this client who uh, that I was talking to was, if your mindset coming in is to contain, then you tend to reply to get your point across and make sure that your point is hammered in and that they're accepting it.
You listen
But
to
if you
win
change
the
your
argument.
stand, yeah, you listen to win. But then if you come in with your mindset, with a mindset of curiosity, I wonder parang where this is coming from. I wonder why you feel like it's safe to go outside. It's safe to go to see your friends, even if lahat kayo senior na, 'di ba? Parang
Yeah.
you're all just exposing
Mm.
each other to
Kawawa
a
naman ang
potential like that.
restaurant,
So
may senior
so
citizen discount
'di ba?
kanila.
Discount na nga. So parang if you come in from a mindset of I am curious to find out, how these things are in your head. And when we come kasi from a place of curiosity, there's not a lot of condescendingness that comes with it. Curiosity is about, really trying to empathize and understand where they're coming from. So that might be a good mindset to have when engaging in these questions.
No, and I think that's definitely true. I would add also patience, right?
Yeah,
It takes a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah, yeah,
patience.
yeah.
patience because
Uh-uh.
it's a lot of the times it's not a straight answer with your parents. And so
Right.
you need a lot of patience to kind of see the end result and where you
Yes.
want
Right.
to, yeah, come in. So
Yeah.
I think that's great.
And
Patience.
if you think you know your parents, they know you too.
Yeah.
They've seen you
They
grow
know the
up.
all, right?
If you
They
think you
know
know
what to
their
hit.
buttons,
Yeah.
they
Oo.
know how to push your
They
buttons
know
as
your buttons.
well.
Oo.
Diba?
Yeah,
Oo.
definitely, definitely.
And I think part of it is finding out what their need is, no,
Mm-hmm.
and then helping them come up with alternative solutions to fulfill or respond to those needs that would not entail, taking a lot of risks like having to go out, diba?
Yeah.
So being creative,
Mm-mm.
helping them think of creative solutions to being able to respond some of these valid needs naman, like for example if they're they need
Mm-mm.
company or they need attention,
Yeah.
so these kinds of things, and parang many of the needs naman can be distilled to like a few needs, that parang we can help them come up with a solution, but also we need to
Mm-mm.
be mindful that sometimes the solution would entail something that we need to give on our part, so for us to be ready also to respond to
Mm-mm.
their
Yeah.
needs,
Today.
no,
Yeah.
ourselves. And kasi hindi naman pwede na yun na nga hinihingi natin na magstay sila sa bahay, but we don't want naman to do anything to help them, 'di ba?
Yeah.
So parang kailangan we have to be willing to give also, because most likely it will entail that we have to do something more, for us to be able to
Yeah.
help them respond to their
Mm-mm.
needs.
Yeah.
No, and I think those are great points. Definitely. My favorite one is really not coming to win. I think
Mm.
if because
Yes.
right, I think that's the answer to everything. If you come in to win, it's always battle mode, and it's always I'm going
Yeah.
to say what I need to say, so you follow what I want
Mm-mm.
you to do. But if you come in with
Yeah.
that curiosity,
Yeah.
that you understand that they have needs, that there are things that and you have a solution or alternative solution that you're willing to not necessarily compromise on, right? But you're willing to do for that so that
Mm,
everyone can get what they want, then I think that's a great way to face our parents.
yeah.
Um,
And
definitely. So
remember that they're not the enemy. 'Di ba? COVID is the enemy.
COVID is definitely the enemy.
We're all on the same side here.
Oh,
And I guess
yes.
if you zoom out though, besides the pandemic, right? In your experience, can you describe common issues that you notice among parents or people that had to parent their parent, right? So I guess, yeah. So if you can share some common issues that you see or things that you notice are sore points.
Well,
Mm,
sometimes there needs to be a shift in terms of the power dynamics in the family,
Mm-hmm.
because parang, and this is something that we encounter in our clients, uh where, in a way, in the Filipino culture,
Yeah.
parents are parents forever. They don't step down.
mm,
Yeah. Even if
So we
they're
need to
sick.
be, yes, we need to be cognizant that in some way we always honor them, but
Mm-hmm.
then to learn how to have those conversations when there needs to be some things that we need to do that impact the family, and parang
mm,
to be cognizant of that. But then to learn also how to communicate well, and be able to differentiate between conversations where we are actually involved, no, and conversations where maybe they just want somebody to talk to, and our role is really just to listen. Kasi nga sometimes, uh parang in a way there's a part of us that always wants to make things better for them, maybe, or anybody we're in a relationship with, that
mm,
we always feel the need to give advice,
mm,
to parang because and here I would like to introduce the concept of stress reducing conversation. So when we're talking with our parents or anybody we're in a relationship with, and the issue does not concern us, we
Mm-hmm.
can like do what we call that stress reducing conversation, where we don't have to take the side of their quote unquote enemy,
mm,
no. So when the situation is that way, we can just listen to empathize, find something in what they're saying that we can relate to, so that it relieves some of their stress. Kasi nga
mhm,
sometimes, let's say, parang alam ko na, kasi nga this is something that we do with couples, no? But we can also apply it to parents. Kasi nga may time tayo, kasi nga in some ways, we know better in terms of the
mhm,
world now, maybe.
Yeah.
So we feel the need sometimes to correct them, no? But then if it doesn't involve the two of you, 'di ba, you get into fights about, let's say, the government or something, na parang okay, hindi naman tayo involved pareho, hindi tayo affected, no? So whoever's turn it is that just really wants to talk, no, just
mm,
Yeah.
listen and find something that you can relate with, so that
right,
they can relieve their stress, at hindi tayo
right.
kailangang laging nangangaral or nagbibigay ng advice. And
Mm,
sometimes you don't even have to solve their problems for them, because many of our parents, part of the dynamic is it's harder to parent them because they're still strong, no, they can still look after themselves. Sometimes nga they're the ones pa who need to bail us out when we need, parang in many ways they're still the parent, but then nga the dynamic has changed a bit, they're slowing down somewhat, no. So parang it's important to still bear in mind that there are conversations where we don't have to be always telling them, parang let's
mm,
say, kasi ganito mali naman yung ginawa mo, ganyan. Kung hindi ka naman involved, 'di ba? So we can
right,
just give
right.
it to them na, be the listening ear, and then if they need help, we can ask
Mm,
after they've
mm,
been able to like
right.
talk about what they're going through, rant
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
share their feelings, 'di
yeah,
ba?
yeah, yeah,
Lalo na kung
yeah.
hindi ka naman involved. Now, when if it's a conversation that involves you, parang it shifts a little bit. So part of what we need to learn might be how to communicate. No, what
Mhm.
I'm sure Rafi knows this also. Positive communication, where we focus more about, of course, like a lot of these things we say, but sometimes we can't apply when we're in
Right.
that situation.
Right. Right.
So,
Right.
but we try, we constantly
Yeah.
try, no? So we try to talk about our own feelings, no? Come
Mm-mm.
from like I statements, no? So it's not, minsan nabaliktad na no? Sabihin mo yung parents mo, anong oras ka umuwi kagabi? Ganyan. Diba? So, so instead of saying it like that, hindi ka nag-text, ganon. Parang we can say, for example, that, when you didn't text last night and you came home late, I was really worried. No? So, yung parang ganon. Kasi the focus now is on how you felt
Mm-mm.
because of what they did and not because they're a bad
Mm.
person. No? Yan. So,
Mm.
parang there's a difference, diba, in terms of the impact. So, learning how to
Mm.
communicate with them uh, in more productive ways, no? And
Mm-mm.
yeah, parang being able to also make sure that when we communicate with them, it's not just about things that need to be done at home. Yung parang ano lang, yung parang roommates lang kayo and not really family, 'di ba? And not and also not just about things that we need to tell them about. So parang hindi laging nega yung conversation.
Right. Right.
No, to also make sure that we balance some negative interactions that may be necessary with
Mm.
more positive interactions, like
Mm.
being able to express affection.
Mm.
So parang parenting talaga, no? Being able to express affection, being able to affirm them when they
Right.
do
Right. Right.
something good, when
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
telling them we're
Uh,
grateful for them. So these
mm-mm.
things, no, just
Uh,
so that parang there we have some fuel for when we have to talk about these difficult subjects. And
right.
of course,
Right. Right.
there will be no end to some of these difficult subjects that we need to talk to.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. Rafi, yes?
Kasi parang like in terms of common issues, ang dami. Like yan, Kay was mentioning politics.
Mhm.
I know that a lot of people our age who might be parents also struggle with child rearing practices. Yung mga why are you parang no you didn't I never had to do that with you, so why you have to do that with your kids. That's very common also, and that can be a hot button topic because nga like what Kay was saying, a lot of these things that we tend to um argue about with our parents are things that we would like to think that we know more about, and it's highly
Mm.
possible that you do know more about these things. It's just that you can't really you can't tell your parents na mas marami na akong alam sa iyo, because that will completely be met with parang then they'll come from bakit ako nagpalaki sa iyo, yung alam mo galing sa akin yan, yung mga ganyan
Correct,
na
correct.
those kinds of things. And so that's why how do you so it's almost like how do you
Yeah.
massage the situation in such a way that you know you get your point across. And I guess what Casey was saying a while ago is very important to keep in mind na sometimes when they say something outrageous, yung to your ears outrageous, yung parang Black Lives Matter, why don't they do things for themselves, yung mga ganyan, those things sound very outrageous to us.
Yeah.
But we have to remember na maybe they're not picking a fight with you. Maybe and sometimes when they're thinking out loud, you don't have to jump in, you don't have to engage. All you have to do is maybe okay, so parang and then so like nga coming from a place of why do you think it's not important that Black Lives Matter? But then don't take it personally if they really think that Black Lives don't matter, or parang all lives matter for them is more important. So parang those things to keep in mind na whenever they say
They have
something
a different
contradictory to
understanding.
you, it might not be an attack to you. Right, right. They have a different understanding. It might not be an attack to you, but it might be an just an expression of you don't have to listen. You don't have to live
Mm.
the advice
Mm.
if it's not compatible with the life that you've chosen to live. Mm-mm. Parang
Yeah, saka yung
that's
mga
it to
terms,
me
'di
talaga.
ba?
Oo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yung mga terms. I had to tell my mom, black na lang ma. Black.
Yeah.
Call them
So
black.
parang, oh. So
For
I
them,
felt,
hindi naman yun bad thing kasi,
Yeah, different. And
Nix?
and parang siya, okay, okay, I'm black.
Oo. Yeah.
I
Hello? Uh, sorry.
yeah,
Okay.
definitely. I think that's really helpful. Thank you for sharing some of
Mm-hmm.
the common issues. Communication is really a big
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of other issues really that we really do see. So we do have some
Mm-hmm.
questions.
Yeah.
You guys ready for the question?
Mm-hmm.
Hello, yeah. So the big question what within how does this hello Rafi? You hear me?
Yeah. Hello. I don't know what's
So
here.
there. Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
There.
so I yeah, there's
Hi.
yeah. So you know, I guess the big question, like I said, I like how you left right on time. No, was that if does this apply
Nag-walk
with
out.
our in-laws as well, right? You have to
Oh.
parent your in-laws.
Oh, the
That's the
in-laws
same
add
thing.
another
How
layer.
does
So
that
now
work?
you have to be
Yeah.
mindful of family dynamics, and not just your own family dynamics, which you know, but your
Yeah.
husband or wife's family dynamics from their family of origin. No, so be mindful of that. So parang nagkaroon na parang we add another layer of the family systems, and sometimes that they clash, and there might be uh different ways of doing things, even if there are similar values, and sometimes the values are different also. So part of it is having a conversation with your partner or a
Mhm.
husband or wife,
Yeah.
finding out, okay, how does it work in your family, and coming up with um like a way, like your own plan of action on how to deal with the in-laws. It really also depends on your own personal relationship with your in-laws, because some are close enough to their in-laws that they can go directly to the in-laws, but for some kailangan there's a go between, that maybe some of your concerns you need to tell your husband or wife first, to be able
Okay.
to, and then they find a way to
Did you?
um
Hello. Okay.
Hello. Sorry.
to
Yeah. So no,
parang
we're yeah
kasi sometimes kailangan ng diskarte, no? Kailangan ng diskarte kung paano in their family.
to
So
deal
that
with
has
it.
to be
Yeah.
recognized as well.
But
Hmm.
besides that, it's
So
still the
parang best
same, right?
if husband and wife are also talking.
So definitely another layer got to the
That's the prerequisite. Uh,
yeah.
kasi kung husband and wife are not talking, then that's also another problem.
So I think that's no that's definitely important that you have to be able to talk it over with your partner and how you would like to deal with it, because what if your partner does not want to deal with the issue that you want to discuss with
Mm,
your in-law, right? That's
Yeah.
definitely a hot topic
mm,
there.
Right.
um,
Right.
but
Right.
but all the components still hello yeah all the
Yeah.
components still apply, right? That we should still listen to empathize, we should
yes,
listen to
yes,
see what they
listen.
want,
All the
right?
more kapag in-laws.
Listen.
Kasi your parents can forgive
Yeah,
you.
definitely.
You've had a lifetime of, like fighting and parang reconciling, and but with in-laws you don't have that history, or sometimes the history is
Yeah.
also full of tension. So
You're the
parang
new.
those kinds of things.
You're the new one in the equation, and then you're rocking the boat.
Yes,
Parang
yes.
ganyan. That's how they see
Uh.
it. Oo.
Yeah.
So talaga kailangan ng diskarte, added diskarte
Yeah.
kapag
Yeah.
Right.
in-laws.
Right. But I guess I don't know. I don't know if this if it was brought up, but like I wanted to say also that parang if you have a problem with your in-laws, and
Yeah.
your partner is refusing to acknowledge that, that's a totally, because
Yikes.
parang if you have a problem with your in-laws, that's not just your problem with the in-laws, it's both of your problem with
Right,
that set
right.
of parents. So parang your partner has to parang help and step in and sort of
To I guess manage or to
yeah,
yeah to do
yeah,
that. We
right,
actually have a
yeah, sige,
we have a question here from Grace
yeah,
Aranda, and
uh,
she asks, so how can we show them? I assume them as parents or in-laws, right?
mm-hmm.
Affection when it's usually not appreciated.
Mm.
Oh,
Ibu,
juicy
Ibu go.
question. Well, parang here maybe we need to also talk about the languages of love. So find out what their language of love is and do something that's in their language of love because that's easily
Mm,
recognized.
Yeah.
right,
No, kasi
right.
kung hindi kayo masyadong I love you sa
Mm-hmm.
family or
Mm-hmm.
uh parang kasi it's important to do like show appreciation in a way that is recognized, that is automatically seen as um
Mm-hmm.
parang show a way of showing love or appreciation for the parent. So that's one
Right.
tip, no? And then another is to um parang find kasi nga different naman ways of showing affection, no? Maybe try to stay hands and helping them with some of those needs, no? Kasi
Mm-hmm.
those things baka mas readily makikita. Kasi nga
Right.
sometimes if we persist on just using kasi nga our language of love naman is most natural to us, so parang we can't help but show it that way. But then maybe part of showing love is to also find out, okay, how do they show love? How do my parents show love? And that's how we can do it. That they can readily absorb.
Yes, no, that I definitely agree that language of love is really important. Rafi and I actually before we got married had that discussion about what are his languages of love and what is mine, and so it is really a constant reminder that the
Mm.
way I'm showing love isn't necessarily how he's receiving
Right.
it, right?
Right.
And so
Right,
it's
right, right.
all about that alignment, and it's really
Yeah.
important to
Mm.
understand that. And it has to be both ways that you have to understand that I'm showing
Yeah.
this to you,
Mm-hmm.
that's how I'm showing it, but I'm also trying to do it the way you understand it.
Right. And it
Mm.
and
Yes,
in
yes.
that same conversation that we had, that what was valuable also was sort of like sharing from your own upbringing, parang how that language of love was communicated. Because that gives you a tip
Mm.
also about
How that
like how do you,
evolved.
yeah, how do you, or also how do you extend it up. Kunyari, if you're having issues with the in-laws, or if you have issues with your
Mm.
parents, that brings out that or highlights that
Hello.
information, 'di ba? Na
Mm. Yeah.
this is how I developed mine. It could have come from my this parent was the one who
Mm.
had the similar one. So now you know how to deal with that parent, even if that parent
Mm.
insists
Right.
on going
In other
out.
words, na ano mo na, deduce ang kiliti. 'Di ba?
Yes,
Hanapin ang
yes,
kiliti ng parent.
yes, right, right, right. Tama.
And and for me it really makes things clearer. So like for
Mm-hmm.
example, I guess more personally, like so if there's some action that let's say I find my in-law doing that I don't understand
Recognize.
Mm-hmm.
no, I recognize it, right? I see, oh, why are you doing this? Why are you buying this? Why are these
Uh,
things? So,
Yeah,
but if
yeah,
you
yeah.
understand, oh, that's how this person shows love,
yeah,
then
yeah.
I'm like, okay. I don't know where to put it, but thank you. Rather than saying, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, why did you do like,
Right,
Uh,
what
right.
are you thinking? It doesn't match
uh,
my style.
Right, right.
So
and
it makes things
yeah.
easier for the conversation as well. Yeah.
And I guess parang nga, you like going back to what I said a while ago, where you come into these things not thinking everything is an attack on you.
Yeah.
There are
Mm.
also people, they're coming from a place where they have needs or they have wants that they have to express, and this is how they know to express it.
Yeah.
And so it's not, they're not coming from place where parang they want to show you na, oh, parang kaya ko to bilhin, ikaw di mo kaya bilhin. It's not
Yeah.
about that. But it's about parang for them, they know this is parang that's how they think that, oh, I'm being a good parent, I'm being a good
Right.
grandparent, this is how I'm doing it. So it's not to spite you at all.
Yeah,
So
saka
that's a
may
good
cultural
parang thing
layers
to
din
keep
'yan, 'di
remembering.
ba?
Yeah.
May mga
Oo.
cultural
Mm-mm.
din.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's true. So I think we're uh, there. Time's almost
Mm,
up. But I
mm,
guess the last thing I wanted to ask you was advice. So the last thing would be advice that you'd have for parents who are struggling with dealing with their own parents.
mm,
Mm. So maybe just to add to what we've already discussed, it's really trying to find a middle with our parents, and
Mhm.
also recognizing them for their wisdom, maybe asking them also for advice,
mm,
or maybe, discussing the situation and engaging them in problem solving together, collaborate
mm,
on solutions rather than it being one way that we have to tell them that this is what you do and this is what you're not supposed to do. Parang being opening that up to,
mm,
also recognizing that in some ways they do have wisdom that we might still be developing. No,
mm,
and parang even if this seems to be a different world from what they grew up in, parang also knowing that they have had so many experiences that have given them a lot of knowledge, wisdom, and maybe we can use all of that. No, finding out also, and siguro maybe another tip is to spend time with them. No, in doing things that are not, parang it's hard if the only conversation you have with them is one where you have to tell them don't go out of the house or this is what you do. But if you're constantly like spending some time with them where you can talk about different things, doing things together, so the time spent with them gives you a bit more leeway in terms of having influence on their lives, their decisions, 'di ba? So parang sa kids nga rin, 'di ba? Parang kung minsan ka lang nandyan tapos makikialam ka how they do things, parang hindi, it might not be very well received. No? So, yeah,
yeah.
parang having a relationship with our parents that goes beyond, just these usual things,
Right.
it can help
Right.
us be able to have better relationships with them. And like, we've already
Mm,
mentioned na they're not the enemy, but in fact, they're our partners and even like guides and mentors, no, through this life. And parang we can really
mm,
benefit from collaborating with them on things to do. So having I think they appreciate that when we have conversations with them, discuss with them, share without having to be
mm,
super emotional, or at least trying to keep our emotions in check, so we can
mm.
listen to them also and what they have to say.
Yeah.
I had
Thank
some
you.
other thing,
And
but I forgot. Maybe
maybe we can
later.
share it later on next time.
Uh,
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, that's great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I how about you, Rafi? Do you have anything else to add or
for me, parang ano, it's coming in to the conversation with the mindset that you don't have to agree on everything. I think you have by this time in your adult life, you've kind of spent a lot of time getting to know your parents, but then there's also so much more that you're trying to know from them. You used to know them as parents, but now you're getting to know
Mm,
them as individuals also with their own needs and ano. So like I was saying a while ago,
mm,
come into the
right.
conversation with curiosity, come into the conversation trying to listen. And, if it's really, really, if you are at odds with each other in terms of like ideologies or parang ways of doing or ways of thinking, then come to the table where you agree to disagree. But then when you agree to disagree, you don't have to
Mm,
hate the other person. You can still honor that relationship without having to, parang having a good relationship with them doesn't mean that you have to agree all the time. And I guess when you can do
mm,
that, that really tells us that parang you're starting to come in as your into your own as an adult yourself, and seeing them as an adult and showing them that you're an adult para, and then they will see na okay, my child is also an adult in him or herself. And I think
Mm,
getting to
Yeah.
that point, that's a powerful realization on both sides na can be very beneficial moving forward.
mm.
Thank you. I think thank you
Yeah.
for your
Yeah, and
time.
really, like I mentioned, spending time with them
Mm-hmm.
and then
Yeah.
asking them questions,
Mm-hmm.
finding out their life stories. You know,
Yeah.
you'll be surprised at the things you
Mm-hmm.
find out that they did growing up also. And
Yeah.
parang when we find out, all of the things that they did before, their stories, you realize na, okay, mas marami kang alam sa akin in some ways, some things. They have their own, 'di ba?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Definitely.
being able to be open to that and enjoying their stories also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And yeah, no, no, definitely. And thank you. I think you guys gave us a lot of tips, a lot of things to think about when dealing with our parents. I
Mm-hmm.
really like the idea, or I really think that it's great to keep in mind that we have to see our parents as people, as individuals with their own history,
Mm,
with their own
Mm-hmm.
way of doing things, with their own languages of love, with their own
Mm-hmm.
communication style, and that they're, of course, respecting that they're still our parents,
Mm-hmm.
but being able to deal with them as an adult, right? And to
Yeah.
deal with them as not our enemies, but as people. So that's really, I think,
Mm-hmm.
important to deal
Yeah.
with. So thank you so much for today,
Thank
um,
you.
and that's also
and
how
I
we
hope
prove
to
that
have
we're
you guys
adults.
back.
Yeah.
Maybe we could talk and parenting our parents.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anytime.
All
Yeah.
right. So this is the Parenting Collective. Um, this week is we just finished our webinar on parenting our parents. Next week, we have another one, but we will post what it is soon. So please stay tuned for that and have a great Saturday. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. We're still live, Rafi.
Sorry.